The third pillar of recovery, defying the narcissist rules. Do you associate closeness to others with feeling less than them? Do you caveat your accomplishments so that it's really hard to feel proud of yourself? Is there an invisible but powerful pressure to feel bad inside? A scapegoat child knows that only the narcissistic parent gets to consciously like themselves. The child must dismiss from consciousness positive information about who they are. Doing so meets the narcissistic parent's need to feel superior. This rule, of course, disempowers the child so that they do not challenge the parent's authority. And all of this allows the child to stay in relationship to the parent. The scapegoat child learns that feeling good about who they are is dangerous. It seems to offend their narcissistic parent. The child finds themselves feeling as if they've done something wrong when they are happy. Their parent may withdraw or grow vengeful to make the child think this. The child only feels like they are being who they're supposed to be when they feel bad about themselves. This is when it feels like their parent is there. Scapegoat children internalize these patterns of interaction. They work to stay close to their internalized parent by acting as if that parent is still around and in charge, and/or by treating themselves the way their parent treated them. Scapegoat survivors can stay psychologically close to their narcissistic parent by diminishing themselves. The survivor feels more distant from their internalized parent when they consider positive information about themselves. Feeling distant, though, can lead to what I've called the 3 A's. The scapegoat survivor is left feeling ashamed, abandoned, and astray. And these painful feelings get relieved when the closeness to that internalized parent is restored. Of course, then the rub is that the closeness means the survivor must disapprove of themselves. In today's video, I explain how a scapegoat survivor can profitably defy their narcissistic parent's rules. This is the third pillar of recovery in action. The strategy involves approving yourself to pursue what makes you feel happy, strong, and/or free. The critical ingredient in this pillar is seeing what happens now. Do the people who matter to you recoil or attack? If you have safe people in your life today, then the answer is likely to be no. Instead, they're more likely to remain connected to you even when you like who you are. Experiencing this outcome helps the scapegoat survivor separate feeling good from losing needed connection. And if you watch until the end, I'll point you towards a resource to help scapegoat survivors safely live in ways that defy their narcissistic parents' rules. Well, first, let me introduce myself and all 3 pillars of recovery. My name is Jay Reed, and I'm a licensed psychotherapist in California, and I specialize in recovery from narcissistic abuse. In my professional and personal experience, I've worked to identify the fundamentals to the process of recovery. And this has led me to what I call the 3 pillars of recovery. Pillar number 1 is making sense of what happened so that you know it wasn't your fault. Pillar number 2 involves moving away from narcissistic abusers and towards safe people. And pillar number 3 is living in defiance of the narcissist rules. I think it's also essential to find and participate in communities of people who can get, validate, and support you on this path. I've both seen and experienced large improvements in quality of life after applying these pillars. And I also want to mention that I'm offering a new free ebook called 4 Ways to Heal for Adult Scapegoat Survivors. And in it, I offer the 4 strategies to reclaim your authentic self from the fake and painful scapegoat identity, learn and apply the science behind gaining distance from narcissistic abusers today, know the secret to reducing social anxiety for scapegoat survivors, and a way to accept yourself as the fallible and valuable person you are. You can find the link to the book in the description box below or by clicking here. How staying close to your internalized narcissistic parent makes it impossible to feel good about yourself. Someone who is pathologically narcissistic has to see their opinion as more correct and important than others' opinions. They can feel worthless if they're not agreed with at all times. A child learns that their narcissistic parent's opinion of them has to matter more than that child's own. On top of this, the parent relocates their own feelings of worthlessness into their scapegoat child. Next, they act in ways to get the child to see these feelings as the child's own. The child is in the tragic position of having to not only prioritize their parents' opinion, they also have to agree with the parents' opinion that they are defective and undeserving. This equation prevents the scapegoat child from feeling good about themselves. Being close to their parent means buying into their supposed inferiority. As the child grows older, they internalize this pattern of interaction. They stay close to their internalized narcissistic parent by finding flaws in themselves and experiencing others as superior. Doing so spares them from the dreaded state of being nobody to no one. They are left, though, with being an inferior somebody to a superior someone. So this diagram illustrates the position the scapegoat child is put in. They're forbidden from being on the figurative medal stand. Only their narcissistic parent is allowed onto this podium. The parent is to be the recipient of the gold medals, while the child can only look on fondly. The payoff for the child is having their parents stay in relation to them. Well, let's look at an anonymized case example to illustrate. Anita found it impossible to make her mother happy with her. Despite being regularly complimented by her friends and teachers, her mother never seemed pleased with her. From first grade onward, Anita knew it was a matter of when, not if, her mother would berate her for a mistake of some sort. Anita might not put her shoes in her closet as precisely straight as her mother said she should have. She would then get yelled at for her supposed carelessness and lack of respect for all the things her mother did for her. At first, Anita found her mother's tirades to be a misunderstanding. She did not put her shoes crookedly in her closet because she didn't respect her mother, so she thought she would tell her mother as much, and this did not go well. Her mother accused her of not listening and grew even more enraged. So Anita learned it was futile to offer her own opinion of her motivations in these moments. The only thing she could do was let her mother berate her without interference. At some point, her mother would finish and they could get on with life. Anita, though, had to show tacit agreement with her mother's distortions of her. Anita told herself that her own opinion must be faulty. Her mother must be the one who knows how things really are, and she, Anita, should pay attention. But Anita then found herself prioritizing the opinion that she was a careless, thoughtless, and supposedly rude little girl. Anita's mother was managing her own feelings of worthlessness by foisting them onto Anita. Her incessant invalidation of Anita's perspective messed with Anita's ability to internally disagree with her mother's accusations. So Anita was left accepting internally and externally her mother's vicious character assassinations. This was how her mother got Anita to identify as the worthless one between the two of them. Her mother could then feel protected from these feelings so long as she could see them in Anita instead of herself. Of course, this came at great cost to Anita. Anita grew to understand that the only way to interact with her mother was to show admiration towards her. Doing this, Anita realized, seemed to make her mother less hostile. To survive her childhood, she had to show admiration to the same person who was consistently devaluing her. As she grew older, Anita found herself treating herself much like her mother did. She would second guess her own ideas. She'd assume that others would find out how careless and selfish she really was. And she would manage to find friends and partners who treated her in a similar fashion as her mother. Two ways scapegoat survivors prevent themselves from feeling good. The scapegoat child and survivor must evacuate reasons to like themselves. This allows them to stay close to their actual, then internalized narcissistic parent. And here are two of the ways they may do this. What counts is on the outside. Parents of scapegoat children like Anita insist on the child's badness. This insistence is at odds with the child's inner sense of their own basic goodness. So this is confusing for the child. It's also threatening to their ability to be the person their parent supposedly knows. Scapegoat children may cope by telling themselves that the only thing that matters is how others, especially their parent, judges them. They may also incentivize themselves by imagining all the fanfare and love that will come when they win an approving judgment. This carrot makes it easier to dismiss their own positive judgment of themselves. Now they are less at odds with being the person their parent seems to know. They are who the parent tells them they are because it is the parent's judgment that has to count. Anita's childhood demonstrates this coping strategy. She had no choice but to prize her mother's vicious opinion of her over her own. Doing so allowed Anita to feel like her mother was in relationship with her, albeit in an abusive one. 2, snatching defeat from the jaws of victory. The scapegoat child and survivor who encounters success is in danger. They now have a reason to take pride in themselves. As badly as they may want this feeling, it's too threatening to embrace. Doing so would upset the order that their narcissistic parent insists upon. The child is to be bereft of anything worthy so that the parent can be replete with it. If the child violates this premise, they are at risk of feeling abandoned, ashamed, and astray. As I mentioned, these are called the 3 A's. These are the unbearable set of feelings that emerge when the scapegoat child diverges from the inferior position. They go from feeling like the inferior child to their superior parent to feeling like nobody to no one. The child protects themselves from the 3 A's by finding faults in themselves that supposedly negate their successes. A scapegoat survivor has been well trained to assume that there is something wrong with what they have done. These assumptions do not have to be reasonable to be believed. Just like Anita learned not to question her mother's accusations, so the scapegoat survivor does not question their self-criticism. Once they have a reason to reestablish their inferiority, they can feel close to their internalized narcissistic parent again and therefore spared from the 3 A's. This diagram is meant to capture the terrible consequences the scapegoat child faces if they get on the podium. If the child experiences success in view of the parent, they are not cheered for. Instead, the narcissistic parent is likely to feel envious and respond with a vindictive attack. As a result, the child learns to associate shame with excelling. They also feel emotionally abandoned by their parent and astray. The 3rd pillar makes it safe to feel good. In conjunction with the other 2 pillars, living in defiance of the narcissist rules reprograms the scapegoat survivor's mind to equate feeling good with safety. Once the survivor has applied the first 2 pillars, they have a good understanding that their parents' narcissistic abuse wasn't their fault, and they are treated well in their current friendships and relationships. The scapegoat survivor now has resources to combat the 3 A's that can emerge when they feel good about who they are. Feeling good about oneself while in connection to save others is the essence of this pillar. The specific rules the scapegoat child had to live by under their narcissistic parent may vary. However, the rules will be some permutation of the idea that the scapegoat child is defective and undeserving. This pillar helps the scapegoat survivor accrue new experiences of feeling adequate and deserving while remaining cared for by the safe people in their life. Remaining cared for combats the survivor's expectation that they will face the 3 A's if they defy the narcissist rules. This diagram illustrates how the 3rd pillar of recovery makes it safe for the scapegoat survivor to win in life. When the survivor finds themselves on the figurative podium in life, they are cheered for rather than attacked. And over time, such experiences build the survivor's belief in new rules that allow for them to feel adequate and deserving while staying in connection and being cheered for by the safe others in their life. A resource to put this pillar into action in your life. In my new course called the Empowerment Blueprint for Scapegoat Survivors, there are 4 resources that can help you put this pillar into action. First, there's a tool to identify which narcissistic rules may be operative in your life. It's called the Adopted Narcissistic Rules Assessment Scale, or the ANRAS. Once you identify the narcissistic rules that are active, you can begin to defy them. The next 3 videos empower students to defy these rules. First, life move number 6 addresses the rule to stay silent as the scapegoat. The result can be a deep sense of shame when speaking from the heart. This shame can reduce over time with continued practice speaking up today in safe contexts. This life move offers a strategy to make that happen. Second, life move number 7 helps scapegoat survivors defy the rule that they not get angry. Anger would have compromised the scapegoat child's ability to survive. This life move shows survivors how to access and profitably use their anger today. Finally, life move number 8 offers a bill of rights so that scapegoat survivors know what they do deserve in life. The scapegoat child is influenced to believe that they don't deserve more than the very little they get in the family. This life move introduces the survivor to the rights that they get to exercise in their lives today. Well, today's video concludes what was a 4-video series on how a scapegoat survivors in this case can internalize their relationship to their narcissistic parent and then live in ways that keep that connection going. And then the subsequent 3 videos have been about how the 3 pillars of recovery independently and in conjunction work to help the scapegoat survivor gain distance from that internalized narcissistic parent by living in ways that don't cooperate with that relationship. So if you're just tuning in today and you're interested in this kind of conceptualization and approach to healing, I encourage you to check out the 3 prior videos in the 3 weeks prior. I want to thank everyone for your continued engagement with this channel. And I just want to share too, I just hold so much admiration for the wisdom and the courage and the resilience that just shows up in the comments section every week. Yeah, thank you. And so with that, I'll look forward to posting another longer form video next Friday. Take care.